In the story of the Exodus, God rescues his people out of slavery to bring them into a new home, a distant garden land full of abundance.
But God didn't take Israel directly there. Instead, God leads Israel the long way through a harsh, dry wilderness.
But why?
Throughout the Bible, different characters end up in the wilderness for different reasons. Sometimes it's a result of their own decisions.
Like when Moses murders an Egyptian, and then he has to flee into the wilderness.
But the wilderness can also be the result of other people's bad decisions, like Hagar. She's abused and so escapes into the wilderness. But in both stories, God comes to meet them in the wilderness and provide for their needs.
God meets Hagar at a well and promises a blessing for her family that will last through generations.
And God meets Moses in the wilderness and prepares him to lead his people out of slavery. Israel had not yet learned to trust God with their very lives. And so God led them into the wilderness for a time of preparation.
Preparation?
Well, the wilderness is really harsh, but God went alongside them, providing what they needed, just enough for each day.
Why so little?
Well, God was teaching them to trust that he would show up for them every day. He's training them to listen to his instruction and stay connected to his life.
So the key to surviving in the wilderness is the same key to succeed in the garden.
Yes, the wilderness can be a place to practice being garden people.
And when they first entered the land, their trust in God was strong.
But it didn't last. Soon the Israelites begin to imagine that the goodness of the land came from their own wisdom and strength, or as a gift from other gods. They forgot the God who provided everything. And this led to idolatry and violent injustice, and ultimately, their exile back into the wilderness. But God stays committed to his purpose to bring humanity into the garden. And so God meets us in the wilderness again, but this time in a new way. Early in the life of Jesus, he spends 40 days fasting in the wilderness. And there, he replays the wanderings of his people.
He was tempted by the deceiver to stop trusting God and to seize life and power on his own terms.
But where Israel and all humanity failed, Jesus succeeded by trusting his Father and listening to God's voice alone. And then Jesus went around announcing the arrival of God's kingdom and life, giving gifts to people who were in their own kind of wilderness.
Yeah, he was healing people and feeding them, sometimes in an actual wilderness.
And he called people to follow him and to listen to his voice and to share his garden gifts with others. And after his death and resurrection, Jesus went ahead of all of us to open up the way to the future garden land.